You ever say a word enough times and start to realize that the word stops making sense? Like the word goblin, I feel like if I keep saying goblin, 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 it just starts to sound like a really weird word. The goblin we're talking about today is Krenko Mob Boss. This is a classic. Like if Krenko was alcohol, it would be like a fine aged wine. Something that somebody would look at and be like, wow, like you have excellent taste. Krenko is just a classic commander. This deck is just your basic. There's nothing inside this channel. I generally build decks that are very unique and just out there and fun. There is nothing unique and out there about this deck. It's just goblins. Goblin, 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 goblin. Just goblins. So in today's video, we're going to be talking about Krenko Mob Boss. If you're a beginner or somebody that's played for a long time and wants to know about how to play classic commanders, Krenko is a lot of fun. Let's go over the commander. Krenko is 4 mana. You can tap Krenko to create X/1/1 red goblin creature tokens where X is the number of goblins you control. Goblin, 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 goblin. And his ability leads to a lot of very funky things when we're playing the game. So what we have over here are a bunch of separate piles that all explain a different aspect of this commander deck that you can use. You can really lean into just one of them if you want when you build a commander deck for Krenko. I like the variety of it. You know, that's a thing. I will say, I also do have the Krenko Tin Streak Kingpin commander deck that I can make a video for in the future. It's another, I actually prefer this deck to this one just because it's a bit more unique. It's not as classic as this Krenko is, but you know, it's still fun. And then I also have this goblin that's not actually a goblin deck, but Gut is such a fun card that I just feel like I have to talk about Gut. So but that's definitely more of what the channel is known for, just building unique fun commander decks. Gut is great, but we're talking about Krenko today. So the idea is with Krenko, like when we're tapping Krenko and we're creating all of these goblin tokens based on the number of goblins that we have on the battlefield, how do we take that and turn it into a game plan that allows us to win the game? So we're going to talk about this in steps. So step number 1, it's best when we play Krenko and have the ability to tap him immediately so that we can create those goblin. The first pile of cards that we have over here are the haste enablers. So if you notice, other goblins you control have haste, Torch Courier. Even at 1 mana, just this common, we could sacrifice this courier to give another creature haste. In the right moment of the game, you don't know how important this can be at times. So you have the courier, the goblin chieftain, gives haste, Swiftfoot Boots gives haste, and Hexproof Lightning Greaves also gives haste. It's just, honestly, like, you know, thinking about it, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cards inside here. I would think I would even lean into more cards that give haste if you can, just because haste is such an enabler. It basically provides you an extra turn because I don't have to wait a turn to get Krenko to tap and start doing all of the really powerful things this deck can do. Goblin. Before we go into everything else, I think inside this pile, there's a specific card that I think we need to talk about. This is like the card advantage pile. So dealing damage, we're gonna be able to sack and find a creature and put it onto the battlefield, which is nice with Descendant's Fury. Horn of the Mark basically allows us to search for a creature and do the same thing. But the most important thing that I want to refer to a lot inside this deck is the Pyre of Heroes. This card allows us to sacrifice a creature and then search the library for a goblin with the mana cost equal to 1 plus that creature's converted mana cost. So we put that card onto the battlefield. This card is amazing when you're playing this commander deck because it just lets you search for a goblin and put it into play. And with the way goblins synergize and the way they all interact with one another, this is a really, once you're really good at playing this commander deck, this card can just flat out win you a lot of games. And I think it's relatively cheap too. So just because you know, we do have cards like Muxus that could be tutored with the Pyre of Heroes, it just allows us to put a ton of goblins to play, and we can stack our library with cards like Goblin Recruiter so that as we have Muxus enter the battlefield, all of the goblins that we put on the top of our library with Goblin Recruiter can be put into play with Muxus. This is a fantastic game-winning combo right here. So just keep that in mind. Ringleader kind of does the same thing, but cards into your hand. And then Goblin Matron just tutors for a goblin into your hand, which is super fun. But I'm going to keep the Power of Heroes on the top because this is just such an important card. Goblin, 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 goblin. Now that we know that we can tutor for our goblins and kind of get what we need to when we need it, aspect of playing this deck that when I watch people play Krenko, I know that they're a good Krenko player versus like somebody that's just playing goblins to play goblins. This skill that I'm about to talk about right now will make or break your Krenko experience, because right here what we have is the Reckless one, and the Reckless one says his power and toughness is equal to the number of goblins in play, which inside this deck, I'm telling you, can be ridiculous how strong this card can be sometimes. And the reason why that's important is because this pile creates something I want to call lightning rods. Lightning rods are cards that demand removal. And when people are spending removal on your lightning rods, it puts your opponent in a position where they have less removal to cast onto Krenko. This one creates lightning rods because this will buff a creature. This one will also create a lightning rod to buff a creature. And Kiki Jiki is just insane inside this commander deck. He is most definitely would be considered a lightning rod, a card that needs to be removed. And when our opponents have less removal, we can play cards like Quest for the Goblin Lord, so that as we get Krenko in play and start to create our goblin tokens, they get stronger. This reads, when a goblin enters the battlefield, if this has 5 or more quest counters, we get a quest counter when a goblin enters. It gives all our creatures +2/+0, which is enough to just one-shot people. Metallic Mimics allows goblins to enter the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it, buffing them. Goblin Trash Master gives +1/+1. Gauntlet of Might gives +1/+1. This also gives +1/+1. Everything over here just buffs our goblins. I would say if you're playing these cards, I prefer, if I'm looking to win with these cards, I prefer to have at least 2 to 3 in my hand, so I can just be like, okay, I play this, not all my goblins are 3/3s, or all my goblins are 4/4s, and if you have 15 goblins in play, it just quickly just removes people from the game. Goblin, goblin, goblin. So I like to just play them and then force my opponent to respond right then and there, and if they can't, you just win. So just, you can keep that in mind when you're playing around the cards that buff your goblins. Now, when Krenko's on the battlefield, because there's no removal, because they're casting removal on this, we get the Krenko into play, give him haste because we most likely have a haste enabler. But the thing is, like, we need goblins on the battlefield already so that we can maximize the amount of goblins we're taking. So we have a pretty considerable amount of goblins inside this, cards inside this pile that create goblin tokens. And we just keep this as simple as possible because creating goblin tokens is just something very simple. Just cast a creature, it creates more creatures than it just itself. And, you know, we could get a Siege Gang Commander into play. We're talking a Beetleback Chief. This puts 2 goblins. This puts 3 goblins, 2 goblins, you know, 2 goblins. And the idea is that, like, you have one of these enter the battlefield. We have 4 goblins in play. Krenko enters. Now there's 5. Do this. Now I have 10 creatures in the battlefield. And then the turn after, I can buff them to deal damage. Or maybe that same turn, they can all attack because they all have haste. I could tap Power of Heroes to sacrifice something to put one of these goblins into play to buff them. Or tap Power of Heroes to put a haste enabler into play if you didn't already have one. And it just turns into a very game-ending play. So speaking of game-ending cards, we have this Kindred Charge. We cast this. This can just quickly end the game because we attack with a ton of creatures. Impact Tremors is game-ending because every time I tap a Krenko to create goblins, we're dealing damage to our opponents. Hellrider allows us to deal damage as our goblins are attacking, which can just be insane sometimes. This card ends games. Carbon Negotiation ends games because we're tapping our creatures to deal damage. Aggravated Assault can also just end games just because we get infinite combat steps. As long as we have cards like Phyrexian Altar or a Skirk Prospector in play to continue to tap Krenko, create at least 5 or 6 goblins, sacrifice them to generate that mana, do this again, and then we can just continuously go through combat over and over again, dealing damage with cards like Impact Tremors or attacking with like one creature with the Hell Rider, and we just kind of go infinite, dealing damage to our opponents. And this is just the generic Goblin commander deck. If there's something that I missed, you can leave it in the comment section below. For the new players, write it in a way that's easy to understand, because we do have the majority of people on this channel are people that are literally, they ask me if they can use a green mana for a blue mana sometimes. So we're talking about people that have never played the game before. So just write it in a way that's easy to understand. And that's Krenko. Okay, the deck list is in the Discord. You can find the Discord in the description. Let me know if you guys want to see the other Goblin decks. I'm gonna make shorts for them, but we'll see. Keep in mind that we do have channel members. Thank you to the channel members for being members of the channel. To become a channel member, it's just 99 cents. Just 99 cents. And when you do that, it gives me money so that I can continue to make videos like this, or in other words, like buy 25-cent cards so that I can build unique commander decks and then make content just like this, so you guys can go to your stores on Friday or wherever you play, or if you play on Spell Table inside the Discord, you can just play fun decks that allows everyone to have a good time. Okay, I always say the same thing when I end these videos. Always remember, eat healthy. Okay, work out every single day. And most important, you guys gotta remember to believe in yourself. All right, peace out, people.